Britt Ekland has been one of the most famous sex symbols in the world.
Oh, I miss you.
And has had just one of those irresistibly racy lives.
I think he's going to ask me, obviously, about all the many men I have dated.
Britt Ekland married Peter Sellers. The great love of her life was Rod Stewart.
He's a very generous person, emotionally.
He's going to ask me about sex and drugs and rock and roll, of which I'm quite knowledgeable.
Britt Ekland's life has been the stuff of tabloid headlines for 40 years, and I can't wait to find out the truth.
Piers, are you ready?
Britt, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I'm in the enviable position of sitting opposite a woman who's been described as the hottest woman on the planet and the most notorious sex bomb of our times. Have you ever seen yourself as a sex bomb?
Never.
Yes, you have.
I promise you, since the 60s, when I started making movies, I'm the most reluctant sex bomb you've ever met in your life.
Really? It's fascinating. When you went into rooms at parties, you saw all these men with their tongues hanging out. What were you thinking?
But I never saw them. I only saw the ones I wanted.
You've made 48 films, we worked out, and a career lasting 52 years so far. You've acted alongside many leading men in your life. Who was the best kisser of all the men?
Well, you see, in those days, we didn't stick the tongue down the throat. I can make a perfectly believable kiss with you.
Really?
And no one in this audience would know that
Really?
I didn't stick my tongue down your throat.
Really?
Or yours down mine. Yes.
Wow. What's the technique?
I'll show you later.
Could be my moment. Is there a technique?
Of course there is.
Well, just describe it to me.
Well, you just hold your tongue in, and you have your mouth slightly open, and you do a lot of this.
And it conveys
I don't think in real life you do that somehow. It's only on the screen where people go, yeah. Do you know what I mean? I don't think when you kiss in real life you do that. You just... I'm trying to remember now. It's been a long time.
Was there a moment in your career when the tongues began to be used? No,
never.
But they do now, do they?
I think so, because
Really?
well, have you seen movies where people, you can see the tongue coming in and out? It's disgusting. Think of all the bacteria.
Britt, let's take a look at your life and your career as a goddess of the silver screen.
James, I thought this would never happen.
Britt Ekland, star of 007.
She had all the elements of a classic Bond girl.
And blonde bombshell.
Britt's probably one of the greatest sex symbols of all time.
You must be naked, completely naked.
She's Swedish and blonde. She's enough for me.
Now, I wondered what you'd be wanting for afters.
Britt's famous looks made her one of the world's biggest icons of the 60s and 70s.
Well, Britt was the ultimate eye candy.
The most beautiful, perfect woman ever.
She was sex on legs, quite honestly.
In the bedroom. A black underwear.
Britt's sex appeal fueled a turbulent love life, and a list of ex-boyfriends reads like a who's who of showbiz.
Her whole life story is like a romance novel.
Britt dated film stars Warren Beatty and George Hamilton, aristocrat Lord Litchfield, and rocker Rod Stewart.
They were the perfect yet lethal combination.
He was the true love of her life.
But Britt wasn't just a lover and a looker. She took Hollywood by storm, and since her debut in 1961, has appeared in nearly 50 films.
You just sat there staring at me, winding these thoughts out to me like silk from a cocoon.
She was the epitome of what a movie star is.
And with a career lasting more than 50 years, Britt's still a part of all our lives.
She's reinvented herself in all sorts of ways.
This is revolting. Absolutely bloody revolting.
Britt first sprang to fame in 1964, aged just 21 and an unknown budding actress. She left her native Sweden after landing a film contract and then met a man who would change her life forever.
She was in London to do a photo shoot.
And she was staying at the Dorchester, and of course one of the residents of the Dorchester was Peter Sellers.
British comic actor Peter Sellers had become an international film star with hits including The Pink Panther.
He was the most famous comedian in the world at that time.
Peter Sellers opened the newspaper and he saw this beautiful 21-year-old, blonde, Swedish film star.
She had just arrived in England, and I thought what I saw was very good. And I thought that I would like to meet what I saw. A friend of mine said, how strange, she happens to be staying at this hotel. So down I go. I said, would you like to have a drink?
He literally swept her off her feet.
They fell madly in love and did what people do when they fall madly in love. Got married 2 weeks later.
Within just a fortnight of their first date, Britt and Peter, who was 17 years her senior, were married.
How does it feel to be Mr. Sellers?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Is he going to make you a good husband, do you think?
Oh, I know. We will be the most perfect in the world.
They went all over the world. He wouldn't let her out of his sight. They spent every moment together.
Life was very good to her. She was very, very happy.
Through Peter, she was propelled into this glamorous life, not only famous movie stars, but also the royal family.
Within a year, Britt and Peter had a baby together, their daughter Victoria, but her arrival signalled a change in their marriage.
Peter felt overshadowed by the baby. He felt put out quite a lot. Their relationship began to change from as early as that.
And before long, the darker side of Peter's character began to emerge.
My father was very moody. He was very, very jealous man. My mom was his property. He was constantly accusing her of having affairs. He would really have a fit, destroying things fit, like wreck the house fit.
As their marriage unraveled, Britt sank into despair and anxiety.
She started to get really, really afraid.
My mom was devastated and alone.
And one night, 4 years after their wedding, Britt reached her lowest ebb and downed a clutch of sleeping pills.
She just wanted oblivion.
She was just trying to get away from the misery of it.
I think that relationship could have killed her.
That moment you took all the sleeping pills, do you remember how many you took?
I don't think it was that many because I wasn't going to kill myself.
It wasn't a cry for help of a
Well,
suicide.
it was somehow wanting him to realize that he had everything, but everything. All the material things you could want. And he had me. I mean, I was the most devoted wife. I adored him, and it wasn't enough. But he was a manic depressive. So, you know, I just couldn't take anymore. I just did it like, look what you've done to me.
Let's go back to the time that you met him. It was January 1964. Did you know who he was?
I knew the name Peter Sellers because I had just come from Sweden. So I knew the name, but I didn't know what he did. He had come to my door and asked me to come in and have a drink with him. Then he said, would I like to see a movie? I said, yes. We went to see a movie in Leicester Square, and they come with things and popcorn and stuff, and I thought, we didn't have to pay. Wow. And then I realized it was his movie that we walked into.
Pink Panther.
Yeah. Having done that, he then, after the movie, he said, you know, back to the hotel, because I was staying at the Dorchester as well.
And then he offered you marijuana.
He said to me, you smoke, which I obviously did, because I sat there smoking. And he said, have you ever smoked a cigarette like this? And I looked at it, and I said, no. And he said, it's marijuana. And he said, this is what you do. Shh, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. So I did this. And the next thing I remember is that the terrace is out there, right? I'm on the terrace. This is January, and he's kissing me. And then I wake up the next morning fully clothed in my own bed.
How did you get married within 10 days? What were you thinking?
It's exactly what I should have asked myself.
You get married. Do you remember your wedding day?
Oh, yes, very well.
It seemed impossibly glamorous. Thousands of people turned out and you were in this beautiful dress and the whole world's media went crazy.
Yes, that's how it was.
Did you feel in love with him?
Oh, yes. I was madly in love with him. Always.
But you didn't think it was odd to be marrying somebody 2 weeks after you met them?
If I could go back and tell myself, my little self, just don't do it, wait, I would, but you can't do that. You just have to get on with it.
He was friendly with the royals. What was that like?
He took me over to meet Princess Margaret and Tony Snowden. And yes, we were, you know, quite involved with the royal family and did lots of things together. And
we've got a picture of the three of you, I think. There you are.
Yeah, there we are.
Very glam.
Yeah, and she was beautiful. She was a perfect English rose, perfect complexion. But she could be very, very funny.
You met the Queen, and she actually served you tea.
Yes. And she had one of those teapots that swing.
Swing?
Well, you know, it's on a thing, so you can tip it like that.
Did it feel odd? I mean, there you are, this young girl from Sweden. You've married a movie star. Now the Queen of England is pouring you tea with a swinging teapot. It's a bit crazy, isn't it?
Well, when I think about it today, but I just went in there, you know. This is, I was with my husband and this is what he did, so that's what I did.
You played charades.
Yes.
And you had to be a lobster.
Yes. That's my best impression of a lobster. Yeah, but, you know, games is not my thing.
But you apparently, you were so embarrassed you went bright red, and at that point, Prince Philip guessed immediately you were a lobster. Is that true?
That is probably true, because I used to just go red if you mentioned my name.
Were you heartbroken when the marriage ended, or were you relieved?
No, heartbroken. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Was he a violent man towards
you? Physically, you mean? No. But verbally, just unbelievably. Unbelievably.
Abusive?
Yeah. I used to run away sometimes.
Did you feel trapped by that time?
No, I just wanted it to work. Because when he wasn't like that, it was, you know, fun. Whenever he argued, it was always on a Friday. And he said, I'm seeing the lawyers on Monday. So you had to go through the weekend like this. And come Monday, he said, let's go into London. And he'd go to Cartier and buy me a watch. Because the one I had, he'd stepped on and flashed down the toilet. My life was always like this, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. I never knew where he was.
What do you think created that rage in him, or made him so unpredictable?
I think you have to know who he was. And Peter Sellers was a great impersonator. But Peter Sellers didn't have a personality. There was no Peter Sellers unless he was at the dinner table, making a movie. So, not being anyone, I would think he was very, very insecure. And he had to be on top of everything.
What are your feelings towards him now? Because Peter Sellers is such a great, iconic figure in British comedy, in movies, and yet obviously a very complex man. What are your feelings now, looking back?
Well, I think it's really pointless me saying anything bad, because it doesn't serve any purpose. And so I've never spoken badly about him to my daughter or to his children, because it's in the past. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to get on with life.
And did that make you happy?
No, not at all.
You regret doing it?
Yes.
back to where it all started for you. You were born Britt Marie Ekland in Stockholm, Sweden, in October 1942. Your parents were Sven and May Britt, and your 3 younger brothers. Your life, early life, was very Victorian in some ways. How strict was it? I was told you even had to sort of curtsy to visitors and so on.
Oh, yes. We were brought up to curtsy. And you know, my nieces and nephews in Sweden, even today, curtsy to me.
Do they really?
Yes, because I'm the aunt.
Your father was very protective of you, particularly when it came to boyfriends.
The problem was in those days that a lot of his friends, the daughters, had become pregnant and therefore had to marry. And he was determined that I wasn't going to go the same way. And truthfully, sex was the last thing on my mind. But how can you tell a father that?
Is it true your father used to put a broomstick against the door so it would wake him up when you came home from dates?
Yep, absolutely true. And you can try it. It's a very good trick. Handle is here. Handle opens, broomstick goes.
You said that when you were younger, you were an ugly duckling. That was from your book. Let's have a look at a young Britt Ekland. Now, how old are you there?
I probably was about to become 13. But, I mean, I was a fat and dumpy kid. And, you know, you can be as charitable as you want. But that picture doesn't lie. I changed when I became 15. And I don't know if you can say things like this on television, but I got my period.
You can say that on television.
OK. And so I was a very late person. And once my hormones kicked in, then I changed and I lost weight.
You had a couple of nicknames as a kid because of your weight.
And
do you remember them?
My ears.
Yeah.
Dumbo.
I think you said you were called Fatty and Dumbo.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty insulting
in Swedish,
things.
yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, very hurtful.
Yes. So what do? I become like the class clown. I'm the one they can always kick around and have fun with, and, you know, I'm always game. They want to do something naughty. Because little Fatso was there, she'll do it with us.
It's extraordinary to think that about you.
I know.
You were so conscious about your ears sticking out, you used to tie them down.
Well, when I was filming, they would put sticky plasters, and if they ever wanted me to wear my hair back, then they would have to, because they would poke up through the hair.
What is wrong with your ears?
No, I had them operated on.
Did you?
On my 40th birthday.
Well, what did you
They
do?
just cut them in the back here, and they pin them in like that.
And did that make you happy?
No, not at all.
You regret doing it?
Yes, of course.
Britt, let's take a trip down memory lane. In fact, let's hear you say that in Swedish.
Vi ska ta oss en liten tur ner I minnenas väg.
Blimey.
I know.
We just call it a trip down memory lane. Britt was born in Stockholm, Sweden in 1942. Her teenage ambition was to be a vet before her stunning looks led to a break into showbiz.
Britt had this incredible resemblance to a big movie star called Brigitte Bardot.
Britt was sort of compared to her, you know, could this be the next Brigitte Bardot?
Britt started to get jobs, bookings, as a Brigitte Bardot lookalike.
Aged just 15, Britt made her debut on Swedish TV.
Spelat direkt, men jag har gått på teaterskola I 2 år.
Britt then caught the acting bug. She enrolled at drama school and then joined a touring theatre company.
My mom had the Hollywood dream.
She wanted to be an actress. She wanted to be a star.
And by the age of just 20, Britt, who spoke 4 languages, had landed her cinema debut.
Britt, by hook or by crook, managed to get herself a couple of days' work on an Italian film called Il Comandante.
Il signor Sandrelli è fuori Roma. Attenda un attimo, le passo il signor Cataldo.
Despite her promising start, by the time Britt and Peter Sellers had married and divorced 5 years later, it looked like her film career had fizzled out too.
She was a trained actress, and here she was really getting more attention from being married to Peter Sellers than anything else.
She was more than capable and had everything going for her to do better than she actually did.
She was looking to have a breakthrough.
But as Britt approached 30, now single and living in London, her star status became the least of her worries. She discovered that bad financial investments had left her the equivalent of nearly £500,000 in debt.
She was suddenly penniless.
She had to repay the debts, so she had to take anything and everything that was offered.
She took films that she didn't really want to do.
Britt was offered a film called Get Carter with Michael Caine.
Britt's financial plight left her no choice but to accept her first topless role on screen.
Her agent called and said, well, there's some nudity in this film, and you have to do it.
Hello?
Britt's character took a steamy phone call from a gangster played by Michael Caine.
Oh, I miss you.
She's on the phone, and she's very suggestive and very sexy.
Get Carter became a very important movie.
She's still very famous for that scene.
That was the turning point in her film career.
Britt then landed another racy part in cult horror classic The Wicker Man.
Britt played a very sexy lady who had to seduce this very straight-laced policeman.
She knocks on the wall to get his attention. She dances around the room.
It's really ironic that both parts, both Get Carter and Wicker Man, two roles that Britt really didn't want to do, and ultimately they made Britt a big star.
Britt's success in The Wicker Man led her to the pinnacle of the movie world, James Bond. In 1974, she starred as Mary Goodnight opposite Roger Moore in The Man with the Golden Gun.
She was a British spy, but it was a part that had a lot of humour going for it, and glamorous.
Well, I'll buy you dinner tonight, good night, but first I have a little official business to attend to.
Yes, I saw the official business.
Good night. Would I do that to you after 2 years?
Yes, you bloody well would.
She was sexy. She was beautiful. She strutted around in a bikini, and in the end, she ended up with Bond.
Well.
Oh, James.
Britt became a celebrated movie star.
Here she was, a dream fulfilled. Doubly delightful.
How did you land the part of Bond girl?
I went there and asked for it. I read the book because I'd seen Ursula Andress come out with her shell, and I thought, wow, to look like that and to be like real strong and do things, I want to do. Because you have to remember, in the 60s, a lot of us 60s actresses, all we had to be was just pretty and meek. And here you could do sort of stuff. So I read the book and I dressed like a secretary. I had little kitten heels, a little grey skirt, and my hair in a bun. And I just went up to the office in South Audley Street. And I said, I want to see Cubby Broccoli. And I guess because I was famous, he let me see him. And then I flew back to LA to do a movie. And I was away for 6 weeks. And then I flew back, and I'm reading on the plane on my way back that Swedish actress stars in James Bond. Of course, I thought it was me. It was Maud Adams. So I get home, my agent calls me and he says, oh, Cubby wants to see you immediately. And so I rushed to his office and I thought, oh, he's just going to apologize to me, tell him how sad he is that I didn't get the role. And he swung the doors open and he came with the script and he said, you are Mary Goodnight. And that's how it happened.
You've been regularly voted the greatest Bond girl ever.
Oh, I like that.
Are you proud of that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Are you happy to be defined as a Bond girl?
Oh, yes.
Why?
Because it's something that has lasted this long. And it's loved by men and women. And it spans oceans. And wherever you go, if they recognize you, they say, oh, yes, my dad saw you in The Man with the Golden Gun. He loves you.
But the story was that when you actually turned up for filming, Cubby Broccoli was a bit disappointed in your shape.
He was.
Why was that?
Because he had seen The Wicker Man.
Ah, OK.
And so he
which you were pregnant and slightly full of figure.
Yes.
Your breasts were bigger.
My breasts were much bigger.
Right. So that's what really appealed to him.
Yes,
And when you turned up after having a baby...
With nothing.
He wasn't quite so impressed.
Exactly. So he kept feeding me. And
what did he feed you with?
Spaghetti.
Cubby Broccoli force-fed you spaghetti?
Literally, he had a dinner every Saturday night for the crew and the cast at an Italian restaurant in wherever we were. If it was in Bangkok, if it was in Hong Kong, in Hong Kong. And he would literally sit next to me, make sure that I ate.
Specifically to make your breast grow, or...?
Well, I don't know where he thought he was going to go.
If he's watching this, what would you say to him?
I loved you very much.
Through the 70s and 80s, there was a pattern of the world's most handsome heartthrobs beating a door to get near. Did you not start to think, wow, I must be quite something?
No, that's just how my life was.
There's Warren Beatty, who was, pound for pound, the #1 heartthrob in Hollywood.
I know. I probably felt he was pretty wonderful for 2 weeks.
It was 1970. He was at the peak of his seduction powers.
So was I.
Exactly. So who seduced who?
I would think he seduced me, because I'm not a very forward girl. It wasn't then. Maybe he took me to the movies.
Warren Beatty just took you to the movies?
Yes, but you know what movie he took me to? And I've never told anyone. He took me to see a pornographic movie.
What? Now we're talking. What was the... do you remember which one?
Oh, let me think.
So that moment, Warren said, look, we're going to go to the movies, and you're thinking some nice romantic comedy, and you enter, and it's a porn movie. What are you thinking?
I just wanted to get out of there.
Did you get out of there?
Yeah, of
You left?
course. Yeah.
And how did he react?
Well, I mean, he had to go too.
Where?
I guess back to the hotel. Wouldn't you, if you were at the porn movie with me?
What was he like, Warren Beatty?
Well, I mean, you're talking to me as if we had a proper going out, having dinner, sitting and having coffee, waking up in the morning.
No, I think we've established it was a little bit more base than that.
Yes, it was, you know, a basic shag.
It was... Fabulous. Let's turn to exhibit number 2.
OK.
George Hamilton.
Now you're speaking.
Now, charming George with his permatan.
I love George.
And he was a proper boyfriend, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. We met in London, in Hampstead, and we fell in love that night. I mean, we were very much in love, actually. Very much in love.
But it only lasted 2 weeks.
Well, yes.
You got a very low attention span or something, Britt? I mean...
I do.
You do? You then turned to royalty. Lord Lichfield, the Queen's cousin. There he is.
Yes.
Handsome
photographer.
photographer.
It was lovely. Yeah, he was like 139th in line to the throne or something.
Only 138 accidents away from the top job. What was he like?
He had 2 sides. One was the royal connection side, and the fact that he was the Earl of Lichfield, and had a stately home, you know what I mean, with the shooting and hunting and afternoon teas and proper dinners and port wine served without the ladies, etc., etc. And the other side was, you know, this really easy, fun-loving guy. He was incredibly professional.
What a couple, look at that. Like George Hamilton, who I think proposed to you, so did Lord Lichfield.
Yes, but it was different. I never wanted to be a lady. It was just the idea of having to be so proper all the time and wear the proper clothes and pour tea and...
Too stuffy for you?
Yeah. I have a little rebellious streak in me, and I knew that I could not live that life.
He said afterwards he felt like he was dying without you. Did you realise how hurt he was?
Yeah, I felt bad. I felt really bad, but there was no other way. Do you know what I mean? I can't lie. I couldn't live a life where I lied.
Britt, you were a big film star and you were attracting a lot of attention from all sides. By the time Britt reached her 30s, her love life had become even racier than her movies.
Why don't you kiss me?
Very famous, powerful men were attracted to Britt.
She was footloose and fancy-free and enjoying her life.
Britt also had a second child, son Nikolai, with music producer Lou Adler.
She was very excited about it. She was happy to have a son.
But just 6 weeks after they broke up, she found herself in the most intense love affair of her life.
Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say to you.
I think of the men in Britt's life, Rod rank is number one.
Rod was the biggest rock star in the world.
So sexy. Men loved him, women loved him.
He was definitely a ladies' man, no question about it.
And when Rod met Britt, the sparks flew.
She was crazy about Rod.
Absolutely besotted with each other.
He's a very boyish person, and he's a very generous person emotionally.
They couldn't keep their hands off each other.
They were sort of yin-yang.
Britt and Rod became the most talked about couple on the planet.
The sexy rock star meets the world-famous sexy movie star.
Well, I think we make quite an attractive twosome.
We make pretty photographs, don't we?
They were on the front of magazines. Everybody was talking about them.
Together, they were unstoppable.
Britt and Rod set up home together, and Britt put her career as an actress on hold to join him on tour.
Britt invested a lot of herself in Rod's career.
Britt would be there almost like his roadie.
My little baby's calculating what these lamps are going to cost.
She did his makeup, she did his hair, she did his washing, she did his ironing.
Britt even appeared on one of Rod's tracks, performing a voiceover in French on his hit single Tonight's the Night.
It was a very sexy voice. I think it had a lot to do with how big that song was.
After 2 years of their relationship, Britt began to plan their future together.
She was deeply in love with him.
She could see herself with Rod for the rest of her life.
But while rocker Rod wasn't ready to be tamed.
Rod was always looking around at pretty girls, always.
It was very difficult for him to be faithful to just one woman.
And unfortunately, he broke Britt's heart.
Britt discovered from friends that Rod had been unfaithful. He'd had affairs with 2 actresses, Susan George and then Liz Treadwell.
She was furious when she found out.
She was humiliated.
But it was also heartbreaking, probably the biggest heartbreak of her life. It devastated her.
The feeling that I get was that he was the great love of your life. Is that true?
Oh, yes. I mean, we both fell madly in love. Like, it was, you know, one of those jokey things where you say, you see someone's face across a room and you go, bing! And that's how it was. Yeah, he was. And I really thought that, naively, but I was in my 30s, so maybe not so naive, that it would last forever.
What was it about him that really captivated you?
He had that very English quality, which is the cheeky chappy. And he showed his love very openly in all kinds of places. He was not afraid of hugging and kissing and being very spontaneous. And he was fun. I mean, he was great fun to be with.
When did you begin to think he was unfaithful to you?
I never thought he was unfaithful to me. That's how naive I am. There was a very famous person in Hollywood called Alan Carr, and he was having this party. And that's where I meet up with George Hamilton, who says, "Oh, how funny. My girlfriend has just left me for your ex-boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend? Who could that be? And suddenly a light went up and it said Rod Stewart. And I just threw myself in the car and drove home.
Were you devastated?
I wanted to throw up. I didn't believe it. So I drove home and I sat up waiting and he didn't come home and I waited and waited and waited and maybe at 6 in the morning he came back. And I asked him if it was true and he said yes.
You just admitted it straight away?
Yeah. And I said, well, you know, you have to choose. Because I told him from the very beginning that I would never put up with someone being unfaithful. Because I felt that I gave so much that whatever I gave, that would be valid. And so I just told him to make a choice, and he said he couldn't. And that was the end of it.
And was it proper heartbreak as far as you were concerned?
Yeah, I became anorectic, and I had a really hard time. Really hard time.
There were reports that you began taking drugs, cocaine and other things in that period because you were so unhappy. Is that true?
Yes, it's true. I had cocaine in those days when I was offered it.
Were you depressed? Was it proper depression in that period?
The pain was so severe that you just tried to get through each day. I had my children, and they had to go to school and, you know, all of those things, and I had to work. I cut my hair off. I think women always do that after heartache, for some reason. But I realized that it wasn't going to happen, so I just had to get on with my life, and eventually I did.
Did you say sorry?
No.
For breaking your heart?
No.
Did you ever say sorry?
No, never.
Do you wish you had?
Yes, I think that would have brought it to an end, you know what I mean? I think that's only fair to do that.
Do you still love him?
No.
Not in any way?
No.
If he's watching this, Rod, what would you say to him?
I loved you very much, but you broke my heart. When I gave birth, he was there. Yeah, not there looking, you know.
Where was it?
In the waiting room.
Stay. Here's Morgan's Life Stories, sponsored by...
In the early 80s, you met James McDonnell, otherwise known as Slim Jim Phantom, the drummer in the band The Stray Cats. You were 38. He was a lot younger.
Just 21 when I met him.
So a little toy boy.
Well, it might look like that, but Jim was actually one of the oldest young men I've ever known.
You separated after 10 years, but you stayed, I think, very friendly with Jim. Why did the marriage not work out, do you think?
Because I wanted my own life. And I didn't feel that it was fair for me to stay with Jim and pretend. I wanted him to have the opportunity to go out and meet other women and, you know, have a life with someone else. And so I told him that I wanted a divorce. He was devastated. And that's the worst part. And I hated hurting him because he was a good person, very good person.
And you'd had your heart broken by Rod Stewart.
Exactly.
You were now doing it to somebody else.
Yeah, and I hated doing that. But I couldn't go on. I just couldn't
live a lie as far as you were concerned.
I couldn't.
You've got 3 children: Victoria, the daughter of Peter Sellers, Nikolai, who you had with Lou Adler, and Thomas Jefferson, known as TJ, with Slim Jim. My favourite fact of the many startling things about your life is that Nikolai's godfather is Jack Nicholson.
Correct.
Which has to be one of the coolest things any kid could ever have.
I mean, he was, when I gave birth, he was there.
Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, not there looking, you know.
Where was he?
In the waiting room, right there. I have to tell you this, because it's quite funny. Nikolai got married 4 years ago. So we all went down there. It was about 40 of us. And we were there for like 5 days. So I said to Nikolai, how come Jack wasn't there? He said, Mom, Jack's detail is too big.
His security detail?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Well, he's Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, but I just love that. His detail is too big.
Britt, you spent most of your life in the public eye and are still very much part of our lives. As Britt reached her 50s and more than 3 decades since she began performing, it was time for a change in direction.
She was ready for another level of her career. Film work, unfortunately, leaves you at a certain age.
She had to adapt and she had to reinvent herself.
So Britt turned back to her first love, the stage.
That's where she'd started. She kind of went back to her roots, to work back to her training.
Britt returned to theatre in a British national institution, pantomime.
She thought it would be fun. I don't think she knew anything about panto at that time, and she learned.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
Britt is a great panto star because she is the movie star, and everybody loves to see movie stars in panto.
Britt's become the country's queen of panto, having performed across Britain for 20 years.
What do you think, boys and girls? 50-50 or phone a friend?
Ultimately, Britt is an actress and she loves being on stage.
She's done lots and lots of theatre work, not just pantomime.
You told me where and when. Let the rest be surprised.
Yes, I'll think of something really surprising, I promise her.
She loves the work. She will never quit.
And in 2010, Britt swapped the grease paint for the jungle in I'm a Celebrity.
Britt wanted to do I'm a Celebrity because she's always up for a challenge. She always likes things that she's never done before.
I remember seeing her with the cage of bugs over her head.
What's the name of the Test cricket series which has been contested by England and Australia since 1882?
Ashes.
Yes.
Please put it in the pot. Now, I'm truly fed up. I'm peeved.
I think she enjoyed it when she got out of there.
Britt recently turned 70 and divides her time between London and Los Angeles, spending time with her 3 children, Victoria, Nick and TJ.
She loves her children very much, and she's proud of her children.
But after all her famous love affairs, Britt's remained single since parting from her second husband, musician Jim McDonnell, in 1992.
She is not interested in another relationship.
She enjoys being single and doing for her the things that maybe at other times in her life she didn't do or put on hold.
She has gotten used to being by her own, and she's too independent at this point.
But that doesn't mean there's no significant other in Britt's life.
This is Tequila. Hello.
Oh, of course, the man in her life is Tequila, her dog.
He's a little cute chihuahua.
They just have the funniest relationship. My mom's outfits in panto, they make a miniature version for Tequila.
It was definitely love at first sight.
They are a great duo, and Tequila's the love of her life now.
Now, we've brought Tequila in. Tequila is sitting over there, proudly,
Oi,
very well behaved.
Get here. Get here. Quickly. Good boy, come here. Sit. Say hello to everyone.
Hello, Tequila.
Just stay there.
Tequila's incredibly well trained. I'm told you can actually make Tequila go to the loo on command. Is that right? What do you say?
Has he been? Okay. Tequila, do you want to go pissy? You didn't take it?
Tequila,
Come here,
calm
come here,
down.
come here.
We don't mean now, Tequila. And Tequila has...
No, he does.
He does?
This tells me that he wants to go.
OK, can you just
But-
wait 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah, he can wait. Sit down,
Tequila,
sit down, sit down.
calm yourself. And is he now really the real love of your life?
Well, he's an amusing companion.
Is he better than having a guy in your life? More reliable?
Well, he doesn't supply the same kind of...
No, I suppose not.
Attention. It's just good fun.
I was looking at it. You haven't had a man in your life, a proper, regular man, for nearly 20 years.
Yes, correct.
Do you miss it?
If I did, wouldn't I have one?
Yes, you would.
My life is my own. I decide everything. I decide what I'm going to wear, what I'm going to eat, where I'm going to go, who pays for it. Can we afford it? I ask him. and I'm so independent that, you know, it just would be impossible.
And if I had the power to let you relive one moment in your life again, which moment would you choose?
I loved doing the Bond film. I absolutely loved it. You know, I was a star, I looked good, had my kids with me. I really was, every single day, super happy.
Britt Ekland, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Piers.
Well, next week she defied sexism and confounded her critics, turning an ailing football club into an £80 million enterprise. One of Britain's most successful entrepreneurs, Karen Brady, joins Piers for Life Stories next Friday at 9.
Britt Ekland has been one of the most famous sex symbols in the world.
Oh, I miss you.
And has had just one of those irresistibly racy lives.
I think he's going to ask me, obviously, about all the many men I have dated.
Britt Ekland married Peter Sellers. The great love of her life was Rod Stewart.
He's a very generous person, emotionally.
He's going to ask me about sex and drugs and rock and roll, of which I'm quite knowledgeable.
Britt Ekland's life has been the stuff of tabloid headlines for 40 years, and I can't wait to find out the truth.
Yes? Are you ready?
Britt, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I'm in the enviable position of sitting opposite a woman who's been described as the hottest woman on the planet and the most notorious sex bomb of our times. Have you ever seen yourself as a sex bomb?
Never.
Yes, you have.
I promise you, since the 60s, when I started making movies, I'm the most reluctant sex bomb you've ever met in your life.
Really? That's fascinating. When you went into rooms at parties, you saw all these men with their tongues hanging out. What were you thinking?
But I never saw them. I only saw the ones I wanted.
You've made 48 films, we worked out, and a career lasting 52 years so far. You've acted alongside many leading men in your life. Who was the best kisser of all the men?
Well, you see, in those days, we didn't stick the tongue down the throat. I can make a perfectly believable kiss with you.
Really?
And no one in this audience would know that
Really?
I didn't stick my tongue down your throat.
Really?
Or yours down mine. Yes.
Wow. What's the technique?
I'll show you later.
Could be my moment. Is there a technique?
Of course there is.
Well, just describe it to me.
Well, you just hold your tongue in, and you have your mouth slightly open, and you do a lot of this.
And it conveys
I don't think in real life you do that somehow. It's only on the screen where people go, yeah. Do you know what I mean? I don't think when you kiss in real life you do that. You just... I'm trying to remember now. It's been a long time.
Was there a moment in your career when the tongues began to be used?
No, never.
But they do now, do they?
I think so, because
Really?
well, have you seen movies where people, you can see the tongue coming in and out? It's disgusting. Think of all the bacteria.
Britt, let's take a look at your life and your career as a goddess of the silver screen.
James, I thought this would never happen.
Britt Ekland, star of 007.
She had all the elements of a classic Bond girl.
And blonde bombshell.
Britt's probably one of the greatest sex symbols of all time.
You must be naked, completely naked.
She's Swedish and blonde. She's enough for me.
Now, I wondered what you'd be wanting for afters.
Britt's famous looks made her one of the world's biggest icons of the 60s and 70s.
Well, Britt was the ultimate eye candy.
The most beautiful, perfect woman ever.
She was sex on legs, quite honestly.
In the bedroom. A black underwear.
Britt's sex appeal fueled a turbulent love life, and a list of ex-boyfriends reads like a who's who of showbiz.
Her whole life story is like a romance novel.
Britt dated film stars Warren Beatty and George Hamilton, aristocrat Lord Lichfield, and rocker Rod Stewart.
They were the perfect yet lethal combination.
He was the true love of her life.
But Britt wasn't just a lover and a looker. She took Hollywood by storm, and since her debut in 1961 has appeared in nearly 50 films.